Everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing my review for Antman and the Wasp. Of course, there will be spoilers in this, but actually, I'll let you guys know when I'm getting to my spoiler section. So, just to kick things off, definitely thought it was a fun movie. Definitely funny. Obviously, Antman is like outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man is the other comedy movie within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it's like this is meant to be comedy first, and then it's a cool comic action movie. The action in this, speaking of which, was actually way cooler than the first movie. A lot of what you may have liked from the trailer with Wasp and her, just her being cooler as far as combat, definitely shined in this movie. Like I think she had, if I remember right, she had the very first action sequence in the film. And it was definitely awesome. I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like watching her fight and watching, Ant-Man fight as well was still cool. Especially during some of their team up scenes, it was fun just to see the different dynamics of how they have to fight. Because obviously Ant-Man can't actually fly; he still uses the ants. And then Wasp is, doing her thing, and she's got the wings, she's got the stingers, and she's just better in combat because it's obviously the character that trained Scott to fight in the first film. So it was definitely cool watching that because I'm like, this is actually cooler action than the first movie, which I thought had pretty interesting action. And now they mix that idea of like shrinking and growing with someone who actually fights even better than the character from the first film. So it's definitely cool. I definitely love that mechanic of it. Something that they kind of tease in the trailer actually is the fact that she's a bit rougher than Scott is. Like she seems like she's legitimately like flipping and kicking and stuff like that, and Scott's still kind of just doing his thing where it's like, all right, I still have a lot of strength, so I'll just punch in this and that. But when you can fly and do all that stuff, it like kicks it up to a totally different level, and it was actually really cool watching some of the action sequences, like the one they show in the trailer where she's in the car and like she bursts through the window and swings out and flies back through the front window. All that stuff actually looked really sweet. Like even though I saw it in the trailer, there's seeing those scenes again, I was like, these are actually still super sweet. I've seen that a bunch because of the trailer, and I was like, it's still pretty fun watching this stuff. And the action sequences I think are fairly well paced. I think there's decent distance between everything. Some of the action, because of course it's the silly idea of them being shrunken down in certain action sequences, is funny. So the comedy's in there as they're doing some of the action as well. So I definitely enjoyed that. But as a whole, I thought it was pretty fun. It's hard to say if I like this one more than the first film. I hadn't, I wasn't really trying to compare it as I was watching it, but going through, I'd say they're kind of on the same level. I think this one, as I was going through it, admittedly, I didn't think it was like anything super special. Like I honestly felt like I was like, okay, that was a fun movie to watch. I didn't think anything like insane of it. Although admittedly, I didn't think that much of the first one either. Outside of the fact that I love the visuals because they do such a great job with how everything looks when they're shrunken down and how they do that. I still think that looks amazing. For just from like a visual perspective, I like movies that do that sort of thing. So they definitely do that. There's some specific elements of this that reminded me of Doctor Strange, which some of which you've seen in the trailer, but I'll talk about that more in the spoiler section. But those visuals were definitely cool too. But all in all, admittedly, I thought it was a decent film. I didn't think like it was over the top, but I definitely think as far as the action, I think was better. The comedy, I think, was probably on par. I think it was funny. Maybe it was a bit funnier because there's some stuff that was kind of brought from the first movie that was made funnier compared to it being one of the more dramatic parts. So they kind of kicked up the comedy, but definitely funny. Definitely like the action. The villain thing is that's the part about the movie where it's like it's right down the middle. Like it's not bad, but it's kind of this weird dynamic of how they did the villains in the movie where they aren't necessarily like half of it is really cool and it's like, oh, there's the drive of the villain, and then the other part is just like there's that villain. It's like there's technically two villains, but it doesn't really feel impactful for like half of the villains. It's just like, okay, well, it's just like the dude that's there, and that's pretty much it. But Ghost is an awesome villain, especially the visuals on Ghost was super sweet. Like I love that where like she's phasing through stuff, but the way they do the visuals for it is like she'll phase through something, but you'll still see the motion of her like pushing a door open or something like that. Like there's a scene in the trailer where they show it where she walks through a door, but you can see like ghost versions of her pushing the door open, and it was like that's super cool. Like I love that idea, and that plays throughout the whole movie with her. Like even during scenes where she's just talking, they have it where if she's about to yell, sometimes you see it before she actually does it, or sometimes it'll be something that she just did like in the last scene, and it'll show like that movement again because it's like almost her glitching out of like reality. So I love the visuals for that where they kind of kept it consistent. It wasn't just during the fights, it was just in general she's kind of like shifting around and stuff, and I was like that looks super cool, and like it made every scene with her in it, even if she's just talking, it's like, oh, she's about to yell or she's about to turn this way or that way or she just did that, and it just looked really cool. So I definitely love the visuals for that. But all in all, I would still say it's a good movie. Definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, the action is kicked up. The comedy, I think, is either on par, or maybe like a little bit more kicked up. Um, like I said, the villain thing is the one element where it was just kind of like right in the middle for me, because half of it I thought was like, that's actually really cool, and then the other half was just like meh, and it didn't really mean anything. It led to some good moments for sure, which I'll talk about in the spoiler section, with some stuff that's fairly unique to like, excuse me, like villains and how villains tend to interact, and I thought it was some pretty good stuff that they did in the movie. Like there are two scenes in particular that kind of made me laugh, but excuse me, all in all, fun movie. Definitely check it out. I mean, it would just going along with all the cinematic movies. Definitely good. There was nothing bad about it. I just didn't feel like it was a grand spectacle or anything, and I don't know why. I guess it was just when I was watching, I was like, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not feeling like it's the biggest thing in the universe. But I also didn't feel that way with the first movie. I just enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed this one too. Probably a little bit more than the first, actually. Action for sure. But the comedy, like I said, is kicked up a little bit. All in all, though, I still recommend it. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it because it is good. Yeah, it was just fun. It was definitely fun. I like the way they handled it. The characters in general, their growth from the first movie, I actually think is fairly well done too. So I do think this one's probably a nice sequel. I think it's a good way to do a sequel, especially considering the stuff that happened with, Ant-Man going into Civil War and all that stuff, and how they talk about it and what happened afterwards and things like that. There is a comic, if anyone's super curious, like how the F did this happen or that happen. There's comics for everything. So, if you want to just read a comic, it's when Captain America is at the end of Civil War and he breaks everybody out of prison. There's a full comic about that if you want to read it. But, if you didn't get enough out of Infinity War, you'll get the exact same out of this. Like it's just like this happened, we got out, and then this happened, we made a deal, and house arrest. It's like the exact same thing. They don't go into any extra specifics or anything like that. It's like, go buy that comic you probably didn't know existed, and then you have like your 100% definitive answer on that. But definitely a good movie. Highly recommend going out to see it. Of course, this is where I'm going to get into the spoiler section, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out, then you can come back to this. But if you have seen it, or if you're just thinking about it or anything like that, we'd love to know what you guys thought about it, or thinking about it as far as going into the movie, what you've seen so far, spoiler free, of course. But getting into the spoiler section, there's a couple places I want to start, but I will start with the villains, because that I felt was the one thing that kind of just threw it off a little bit for me. And it was mostly Walter Goggins' character, who's, of course, the sort of Southern guy. Always love him as an actor. He was in the show Justified that I loved, and this like maybe only the second character. It's like half his characters have been racist dudes. So I was like, he's got like two characters left to make me think he really doesn't like black people. But I like him as an actor, and in this, I was like, they don't really utilize him as much as I'd hoped. Like, he's just this dude who is, oddly enough, he is almost the same villain that he was in the Tomb Raider movie. If you haven't seen that, he was just the dude that was the bad guy, and that was pretty much it. Like, he didn't have much motivation. There was no real story. It was just like, I got to do this to do this, and that was it. And that's exactly what he was in the Ant-Man and Wasp movie. And it was like, watching him in this, I was just like, there's not much here. Like, he finds out that Janet, or not Janet, but Hope. I'm so used to Janet Van Dyne, but he found out that Hope is Hope. So it's like, oh, you're Hope Van Dyne, which means your dad is Hank Pym. Ant-Man, Scott Lang, all that stuff. I was like, okay, where's this gonna go? And it really doesn't go anywhere. It's just him wanting to make money, and we don't see any other people or anything like that. I do believe they mention a specific name like 2 times in the film, and that could just be like a comic book character that I'm not familiar with. So I think that's what they were doing with that, whereas like they reference like some name that I can't remember, and I think they referenced it, like I said, like 2 times throughout the film, because it was like when he was on the phone, he was talking to someone else, and I don't think it was when he was talking to the FBI agent. Like, there was someone else I think he talked to, and he mentioned like their actual name, first or last, whatever. And I was like, I don't, like, we've never seen this person. That has to be some comic book reference going towards, after we get through all the Infinity War stuff and people coming back and all that stuff. It's like, okay, this has happened, that's happened, little tiny reference here, and then eventually when we get to Ant-Man 3, Walter Goggins is boss, because I totally don't remember the character's name, like the villain in the movie, I don't remember his name at all, but his boss that he was talking to, or whoever the this mysterious buyer was, that's who's going to be like the main big bad for 3. And while that's a cool setup, that's a better setup for a TV show than it is a movie, because it was like you can't just drop a name and I don't know who they are. Like, it's just some person, admittedly, that just wants to buy the lab for, I think it was like $10 billion or something insane. So it's some super rich evil villain. Surprise, surprise. And it was just like, okay, that would be better if we knew who this person was. It was legitimately just, he was kind of there just to chase down the money. And you can have that as a villain and it totally works. But in this case, when you have like that admittedly kind of weak villain, where it's like he found out what was going on and then he was just trying to steal the lab, it's not as cool as, well, Ghost is trying to steal the lab because she's literally falling apart, like through the fabric of space and time. She's literally tearing apart through the quantum realm. That's a much cooler story, and it's like there's so much there where her father was pushed, like everything that you want in the villain is in Ghost. It's like she has the emotional story where it's like, you kicked my dad out, you kicked all these people out, and so he was trying to continue his research, and that's what got him killed, that's what got my mom killed, and that's what made me like intangible, for the most part. And then after that, the other guy that you totally pushed out, who's Lawrence Fishburne's character, he found me and he kind of became my father figure. And so we teamed up and he helped me, he was helping me kind of survive basically. And it was like, all of that stuff was cool. I was like, the emotional twist. They didn't take too long on the twist with Lawrence Fishburne's character. I was admittedly surprised by that because I thought, once they left and he helped them out, I was like, oh, well, that was it. He actually didn't play a big part in the thing. It was just like, here's a little cameo from the character Goliath, who is a comic book character. So I was like, oh, okay. He just had like a menial little role. It was just like a cool little reference for that character just to have him in there, and they made it Lawrence Fishburne. So I was like, okay, he's working with the villain. That's his bigger role. That kind of caught me off guard because I thought she was kind of just doing it on her own. But I definitely thought it was cool. I admittedly liked the way they tied into the rest of the universe with S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, because nobody talks about S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. Unless you're watching, obviously, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But I thought that was really cool. They talked about, like, we used to be partners in S.H.I.E.L.D., and he kicked us out. That led to her dad dying, and, S.H.I.E.L.D. took her in, and they totally lied to her and said that they would help her, and they made her a stealth operative, and she killed a bunch of people for them, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. fell apart because of Hydra, and it was like, sorry, we weren't going to help you anyway, and then that was it, and it was like, man, that's dark, but that's S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, S.H.I.E.L.D. does some really crappy stuff like that, where they lie, just like any other government agency, and I just thought that was cool. I was like, all right, these are, like, just little things where you get to see, little extra bits of the universe, and it was more about S.H.I.E.L.D. So I thought that was cool just because I like them technically expanding the universe where they show that darker side of S.H.I.E.L.D. outside of, these are still the good guys, but some bad things are happening, like when they had Captain America and Winter Soldier. It was like, okay, that's cool. They talk about the darker side of, S.H.I.E.L.D. watching everybody and doing all this extra stuff. And this is just like, yeah, we just totally lied to this girl whose dad died and her mom died, and she's, falling apart literally, and whatever, just kill people and we'll heal you. But then they didn't. It was like, that was just a dick move. There was nothing like kind of good or anything. It was like they just were dicks about it. It was just bad. It was basically the Black Widow stuff. It was like, that's just bad stuff happening. So I actually like that element because it showed the darker side of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I feel like they don't touch on enough in the movies, because it's always like, it's like, oh, we're kind of in the middle ground. Like, the furthest they got was Captain America stuff, and then it was kind of all torn apart because it's like, oh, Hydra, the Nazi people who were super bad, they destroyed everything. So then it's like, oh, whatever. But I like that element. But like I said, as far as the villains go, Ghost I thought was awesome. Admittedly, I wish we got to see a bit more of her. Like, if they threw Walter Goggins' character completely out, it would have been fine. But they kind of needed a way to get into that because he's the one that allows them to have the parts that they need. They were, they had to get him from somewhere. So it totally makes sense that he was in there, but he just didn't have that much to do. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. He has some important roles, but it's just not as entertaining as, like, she has so much more to go for, and you're just the guy who wants money. And that was it. And it was like, man, that's nothing. But as I mentioned before, with the interactions between him and Ghost, that I love. Like, the scene where they were interrogating them and they used the truth serum, which of course led to them talking, doing the voice thing, which I thought was funny. When he's like, oh, he's in the woods, and she just pops up, everybody freaks out. It was like villains and heroes alike. Like, everybody's just like, where the F did she come from? Everybody's just freaking out. So I did like that, because like the whole way through, it was just like his character being like, I don't understand that. The good guys don't understand this. I'm just freaked out. Like, this woman's walking through walls. He was also super calm. Like, clearly he knew some stuff, because he was like, forget about Bitcoin and all this. Quantum physics is the way of the future. And I'm like, who says that? Like, only people who are supervillains already say weird stuff like that. Like, nobody's like, quantum is the way of the future. Like, nobody's saying that except for supervillains. So it was weird. But I did love those interactions where it was like he was just as freaked out as everyone else because it's like, I don't understand this. Literally, she just pops up out of nowhere because she was invisible the whole time, and everyone just flips out like, where did you come from? So I did love that interaction. And he just gets beat up, he gets arrested at the end of the episode. So like I said, with him dropping like that little hint with the single name, he might come back, but whoever he was buying for is probably going to be the big bad for 3 whenever we get to that point. But the way they handled it, with Ghost at least, I thought was cool, especially considering the fact that when Janet gets saved, she actually heals her temporarily. So I don't know what they're going to do with that when she comes back to life. But I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, she's got weird powers, and she helps Hank kind of survive when he's in the quantum realm for a little too long. So I thought that was cool. And then she helps Ghost, and it's like, all right, well, now we can just go shoot to the quantum realm, pick up some stuff, and then we'll bring him back. So Ghost is gonna probably show up in a future film because she and Lawrence Fishburne's character both escape and stick together, and they kind of say, like, oh, we'll get the healing particles for Ghost. So now they're kind of allies too. So I was like, all right, well, that should be cool. That's a cool character to have as a partner. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe she'll be in the 3rd movie as well, just like Lawrence Fishburne. But either way, I thought it was cool. Naturally, they had to do the extra credit sequence, which everybody was figuring. I thought the same thing. I was like, of course they're gonna kill his daughter off, which technically they probably still did. But yeah, that was a cool way to do it. I thought that was gonna be like the post credit sequence, so I was admittedly surprised that was just the sequence there. So I was surprised that they didn't hold that for like the post credit and then do something else. But it was definitely a good sequence. I'm like, oh, who's gonna vanish? And it was all 3 of them, because I was like, maybe it'll be one of them. Maybe I figured it would be 2. Like I thought it would be 2 max, and it was just like all 3. I was like, well, that's not what I thought was gonna happen. I thought it was gonna be this person dies. Maybe they kill off Wasp, both versions of Wasp. Maybe Hank Pym kill all 3 of them. But it was like, the fact that he was stuck in the quantum realm changed everything, because it's like, oh, wink wink, don't fall into a time portal. And I was like, huh, he got trapped in there, so he'll be back in time, and that should be cool. I don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't know if he'll be in the Captain Marvel movie, if that's what's gonna happen, but I thought that was super cool, because I just thought for sure they'll kill somebody off and it'll be like, what the F is happening? And that's just how it plays out. Like, they kill his daughter, they kill Hank and Hope, and maybe leave Janet. That would have been cool if they did leave Janet and she, had to go back as Wasp for like a little bit. I think that would have been sweet. But killing everybody off and then trapping him in the quantum realm, and he has to get, basically go into a time portal and get shot out somewhere, that I thought was cool. Like, the possibilities, they aren't really wide open, because it's either he'll be in Captain Marvel's movie or because there's some stuff where they talked about the next movie is going to deal with time travel for Avengers. So he'll probably be back in like the first Avengers stuff, which I think would be super cool. So I'm curious how a lot of stuff is about to play out, because that changed like the whole dynamic for me, the fact that he was stuck in the quantum realm and everyone started to get wiped out. But I thought that was super cool. And then, the post-credit sequence was just the ant on the drums. But it was creepy. Like, even with the ant on the drums and it's like this silly, weird thing, admittedly, it was kind of creepy just starting on the TV where it's like, this is not a drill. And it was just like, everybody's dead. Like, we don't know who or what is left alive. And for some reason, that just creeped me out. Just seeing it start there, even though I knew it was just going to end on the ant playing the drums. For a second, I legitimately thought they were going to wipe the ant out too, which would have been super funny and messed up. But that would have been a really cool way to end it if like the ant disappeared too. But just the way they did it, I was just like, man, that's nuts. Like, it just took all 3 of them out, and now he's in the quantum realm. So time travel is there, and we'll see how that plays out. But I thought that was a great way to do it. Everybody like flipped out because all 3 of them were gone, and I was like, well, that was cool, because I thought it was gonna be like 1 person, maybe 2, and it was just like, they're gone. He's trapped in the quantum realm. Time travel. We'll see in the next movie. So that was cool. I love the way they did that. Of course. Would love to know how your predictions played out, if you guys thought that that's how it would work. I think everyone was on the same train that they would kill his daughter off, because that would have been like super depressing. But maybe they didn't want to go that far and just be like, hey, and plus the time travel thing, they had to throw it in there somehow. But definitely thought that was a cool way to do it. It was a definitely fun way to end the movie, because it was like, all right, because I thought it was going to be at the end of the like actual movie, and they were just going to start people just dropping like flies. I'm like, somebody's about to disappear real quick, and then the movie ended in the post-credit scene. I was like, okay, somebody's about to go here. But the whole thing, like during the end of the movie where everything's like, we beat the bad guys and this and that, I was just like, I'm just waiting for the ball to drop, and somebody's just like, I don't feel so good, and then it's just somebody vanishes. But post-credit sequence was a really great way to do that. Everybody was flipping out, but enjoyed the movie, love the way they did that, and I just can't wait to see what that next movie is going to be. So looking forward to that, and however they're going to play the Captain Marvel thing. But of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about Ant-Man and the Wasp, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it, and I will actually love to know your predictions for Ant-Man 3. With what they have with Ghost and what they're doing with Scott going back in time, and possibly what they're going to do with the villain of the next movie, I would just love to know what you guys think is going to happen. Like, you obviously have to predict, Captain Marvel, if Scott doesn't show up in there, but Captain Marvel, the next Infinity War, whenever, Ant-Man 3 ends up coming out anyway. But I would love to know what you guys thought about this and where it seems like it might be leading for Ant-Man 3. Like, I assume they'll bring back Wasp. Hopefully they bring back Janet. That would just be super sad. Like, if Janet and Hank, both of them just never came back, or, Janet came back and then Hank was gone forever. That would be a crazy, sad way to do it. I don't think they'll go that far, because that'd just be messed up. It's like this, like at least a somewhat lighthearted, movie. So we'll see how it plays out. But we'd love to know what you guys would like to see, at least for 3, and how you think it might play out with where things are kind of headed for Ant-Man, and possibly what they're going to do with Ghost and Goliath as well. So we'd love to know what you guys are thinking, what you thought about the movie. Like I said, favorite parts, least favorite parts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.